All right. What's up, Alabama fans? It's Andrew Bone here, Bama Insider. Got a special guest tonight on our show, Jody Wright. Many people will remember Jody from his years at Alabama as the director of player personnel. Jody also was at Alabama a couple years prior, working as a grad assistant. So, Jody, man, welcome to the show. How's it going up in New York?
Well, thank you, Andrew. Everything's going great, man. I wish I was a little cold right now. I wish I was in that good Alabama weather in a tree stand, but it's going great.
It's I think it's about 25 degrees here in Birmingham tonight. So we got a little bit of cold weather this week. But yeah, man, we just wanted to get you on the show this evening, talk to you a little bit about just kind of your time at Alabama. But let's talk about your career. Your career kind of started out at Pickens Academy. I think you won 3 state championships in a row, went undefeated all 3 years. Working for, or I guess not working for your dad, but playing under your dad.
It was I tell people all the time, I was blessed growing up in Pickens County, about 45 minutes outside of Tuscaloosa. So, I was kind of bred early to be an Alabama fan and growing up and getting to see, Coach Stallings and everything, and hearing about Bear Bryant and everything. So I was hooked at probably before I was out of the womb. But, playing for my dad, he was a high school coach down in South Alabama for a little bit, and then at Pickens Academy, and very fortunate growing up as a coach's son and on a farm, and so got to be around football my whole life, and very, very blessed, to be on some great high school teams. Had a lot of great teammates, a lot of great memories, and at Pickens Academy, and then went on to Jacksonville State, signed to play football up there. Was probably not a really good player, but had a couple of knee injuries and got into coaching a little bit early, and I was around some great coaches. Jack Crow was the head coach. He actually coached my father at the University of West Alabama. Oh, wow. So Coach Crow got me into coaching early, and got to learn a lot from him and a lot of different guys on staff, and was very fortunate when I left Jacksonville. My first actual coaching jobs, I started out as a volunteer coach, graduate assistant at Mississippi State. I always heard, get around good coaches and learn, and was fortunate enough to be around Sylvester Croom, and Coach Croom, a lot of the, everything that Bear Bryant taught him, and being assistant for him, and such a class act and a great coach. And, we really did some special things. I thought Coach Croom did, rebuilding the program there at Mississippi State and the culture. And, from there, I was fortunate enough to be a graduate assistant with a lot of guys that had been at Alabama and different places. And, Shane Beamer was on staff, the new head coach at South Carolina. Woody McCorvey, who's with Coach Stallings, that's at Clemson now. When Coach Croom and Freddie Kitchens, who's the head coach of Cleveland Browns, former Alabama quarterback. So, and then Joe Judge, the head coach of the New York Giants. Ryan Holler, our chief of staff of the Giants. All of us were graduate assistants there together. So I was very fortunate to be around Amos Jones, who's with us now, played at Alabama, coached at Alabama. Was around a lot of Ellis Johnson, a lot of great coaches that I was fortunate enough to be around at Mississippi State. And then from there, went to Alabama as a graduate assistant in 2010. Then I was an offensive analyst for 2 years under Coach Saban. And, I felt like I was, got to sit in a doctoral PhD class every day. And I probably wasn't smart enough to keep up with all of it, but I tried to write fast, take good notes, and learn. And, from there, I went with Bill Clark to Jacksonville State as a tight end coach, passing game coordinator. And then we had a good season, a lot of great staff, great players. Got to go to UAB 14. And then when the program was shut down, I came back to Alabama as director of player personnel with Coach Saban for 3 years. And that was a great experience. And like I said, we were fortunate enough to recruit a lot of great players and just a lot of great teams, those 3 years, and a lot of great guys on staff. And then from there, went back to UAB, assistant head coach, offensive line coach, and had a great season. And we won our bowl game, first one in program history. And then, Freddie Kitchens called me and went to the Cleveland Browns last year, working with running backs. And then this past season, the New York Giants. So it's been a fun ride.
I bet. And obviously, you got a great family, and your wife Meredith, who I've known for a very long time. Through Nick Wright, who is. I don't think he's any relation to you, but Nick.
He's got too much hair and too smart to be kin to me. But
that's right, Nick. Nick is a good friend of mine from high school, and married to Jody's wife, sister. So we've had that connection for a long time. Let's talk about being the director of player personnel at Alabama for 3 years. A lot of really talented recruits that have come through Alabama those 3 years. I think it was 3 straight number one recruiting classes. So I'm sure that was pretty spectacular. But talk about what the director of player personnel kind of entails. For people that don't know what that means.
Basically, Coach Saban, which I think he was probably one of the first guys in college football, and everything starts with him and ends with him, and he really tries to set up that role, kind of the filtration of kind of the roster management to recruiting, kind of what the needs are at each position, and he has his own criteria about the characteristics he's looking for at each position, and basically getting with him and how he wants to break up the recruiting areas. And then, if you have a coaching change, well, maybe this coach has got better relationships in South Florida, and maybe this coach is an Alabama guy and he's really strong in Mobile or Huntsville, or, you basically want to try to find everybody's strengths where they've either grown up or coached and had a lot of recruiting ties and built a lot of relationships in those areas. So basically that also, I was in charge of doing a lot of the NFL liaison when you'd have scouts visit, general managers, directors of college scouting, helping with pro day to set those things up, and basically talking to the scouts about, the players on the roster and kind of their background and everything, and making sure at practice they got to be with anybody that they need to talk to, and then working with, basically it's a team deal between the coaches and Coach Saban, and basically when guys come on campus, setting his schedule, who he needs to meet with, who he's going to do recruiting calls with, and basically planning our assistant coaches' travel, because I know it's been a crazy year with COVID, but, in my years, kind of, hey, the priority, we need to send this coach or this coordinator to see this family, and we need to Coach Saban, a lot of times the head coach can only go in the one time in December, January, and, a lot of times, especially with really good recruits, they may have different SEC schools, ACC, Big Ten head coaches coming there and kind of saying, hey, is it better for Coach Saban to go at the front end or the back end, depending on the type of guys. But, I tell people all the time, though, Coach Saban, he was really the director of player personnel. So
it sounds like you didn't sleep much.
No, sleep. I probably had a little more hair, but no, he was great. And I tell people all the time, like, it always amazed me about how hard he worked, and he could go recruiting all day, watching tape of players, and basically, we would watch players, evaluate them, why they're a good player or why we think we can develop them into a good player, and, different things like that. And, and when guys would get on campus, just coordinating their visits to make sure, hey, they had certain questions they needed to ask the training staff with Jeff Allen or the strength staff, and, the nutritionist. And I tell people all the time, that was the one thing I think that made Alabama what Alabama is special, is the fan base, and, even things as small as social media and all the stuff you do, Andrew, like, the fans and stuff, players love to be wanted and love to be supported. And Alabama has, whether it's, Greg Byrne and the administration, Coach Battle, Coach Moore, the president, universities, everybody's always been on board, trying to make the players the best they can be and the experience the best they can be at Alabama. And then a lot of times the players sell it to themselves, say, hey, Alabama's developed me, gave me every resource I have. And, I've been able to win championships and be the best player and best person I can be, and probably going to have a chance to go play at the NFL or go get a great job. And, if they're not interested in that, you probably don't want them as a player.
Let's talk about, this is a weird year with COVID. I mean, obviously you guys experienced that up there in New York with the NFL. But How difficult do you think it probably was for these Alabama coaches? You don't get you don't get spring or summer evaluations. You don't get to go out to high school games. You don't get to bring kids on campus. For games. You don't get official visits. How do you think they're able to manage all that?
Well, I know they probably found a way. Just like with managing COVID, I promise you, Jeff Allen and his staff did a better job probably than anybody in the country. Just because I think if Coach Saban's in charge of it, he's going to make sure it's ran right and whatever it is. And, I know a lot of schools, and I think Alabama doing virtual online tours or a lot of Skype calls, kind of like they have to do in the spring, which, it's tough because you don't actually get to see your eyes on them. And, we always like to go to high school games and see how guys interact with their teammates and with their coaches, and, that winning's important to them and being a good teammate and all those sort of things, because that's what's important to being a successful player at the University of Alabama and under Coach Saban. So, you want to try to answer all those questions when you've got to see them in person. Mm-hmm. But I do think it will be more difficult because you didn't get to go to games in the fall and in the spring and everything. So I think you really had to probably get to know them, virtually and try to call people and ask a lot of questions about them and hope that turns out good. But and them not being able to visit probably a lot as well, mm-hmm. and get to interact them and them interacting with the players. And I always thought, our players at Alabama did such a great job. And, whenever they would host recruits on official visits or, guys in the locker room after the game, they just played a hard fought game and then here's some high school sophomore, juniors, or senior in the locker room, and they want to talk to a Mac Jones or a Rayquan Davis or some of these players, and they were always so, because I think the Alabama legacy and stuff was important to them, but they wanted to keep the standard they're playing. And speaking of Mac Jones, he was always one of the best guys ever, like talking to guys, recruiting and stuff like that, and. So we were always, him and Miller Forrestall were always great. Rayquan, we always had a lot of good players that were always, doing whatever they could to keep the standard of the program the way it was.
Coach Saban's so detail oriented and everything. How detail oriented in terms of, really kind of finding the right recruits, knowing, this is a guy that we're going to target, not just based on his highlight film. When you guys are really breaking down, who are you guys going to target? What all kind of went into that?
And I'm sure, I think Coach Saban probably learned it when he was in the NFL from Coach Belichick and different guys. And I don't think there's any college head coach that's as detailed as he is about the amount of players that he actually watches. And, and we would have, basically their good plays, maybe some bad plays. And you've got to answer those questions. Why was that a bad play? Did he just not know how to use his hands? Maybe he's just a little raw and, maybe some technique stuff that can be cleaned up down the road. Or, is he taking plays off and, doesn't really have a motor and, things like that. But Coach Saban, he like that man, he watches so much film on recruits and tries to answer all those questions. And his batting average is really, really good about which ones are going to be good players and not. So he's definitely got the Ted Williams batting average and then some. But.
Let's talk about some crazy recruiting stories. We used to talk a good bit, and there were some kids back in the day that, I think that Alabama felt like they were going to land on signing day. Do you remember anybody in particular that you guys just felt very strongly about that may have ended up going somewhere else, or maybe somebody that you were surprised ended up going to Alabama?
He's actually playing with the Giants now. We drafted him as Xavier McKinney. And I know we just beat Clemson in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, and we hadn't had much contact with him. So, you probably think, man, when they're kind of gone silent, you're probably not going to get them. And
right.
And we're getting on the bus after the game, and and a lot of our coaches, did a great job because a lot of the recruits had just watched the game, especially guys that were not committed. So, they're interacting with them, probably texting them, calling them, whatever. And, so we had to get Coach Saban, he was going to call Xavier McKinney. I forget. I think we played a little bit earlier, so it was still pretty late, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. But most head coaches probably ready to go celebrate the win. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go get one of the best safeties in the country and get this deal done. So we had to get so Xavier wanted to, but we hadn't talked to him in probably a day or so, and I think it came down to Alabama and Clemson, and sure enough, he committed to us that night, but we were all worried. But it was kind of like some really nice surprise after a big win there also.
Obviously, there's so many great players that have come through Alabama, especially under your watch. I remember, back in I guess it was before 2017, because it was when Najee was a recruit, and I think I remember you saying this is a guy who's got a mix of Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson in him. I'm thinking, man, this is some lofty praise. This guy's got a lot to live up to. But he was the number one running back, the number one overall player on Rivals.com that year. And it took him he played it as a freshman, but with Alabama, you don't really get going. You really don't become the man, for a couple of years. But he obviously turned into a pretty special player. Just talk about Najee, and let's talk about his recruitment a little bit, because it was pretty wild.
Yeah, Najee, I remember, Tosh Lupoy telling us he'd come down to visit or whatever, and Tosh was watching him on tape. You're like, there's no way this guy's a junior in high school, or saw, you saw him, you're like, man, he's too big, too fast, too strong. And then, the first time you see him, I think he was maybe 10th grade or junior when he visited, and you're like, man, he looks like he's already could be playing in the NFL right now. He looks better than probably half the running backs in the NFL. And his highlight tape, it was just, explosion, his balance and body control and jumping over people. And, he would always think about seeing Derrick Henry too. And, and running backs usually the position that the valuation, usually you can watch about 10 runs, and you can definitely tell the difference in a good horse that's going to the Kentucky Derby and not, and Najee and Derrick Henry, it was just like they looked like NFL running backs playing against junior high teams. I mean, it was just, it wasn't if they were going to score, it's how they wanted to score. Either run over you, run by you, run through you, jump over, take your pick. Like they could do whatever they wanted to. But Najee, I think he was a guy that just loved the training staff, Jeff Allen and Cochran and everything that kind of Coach Saban and all the support staff around Alabama, like all the resources. Because Najee was a guy that I think that God just naturally blessed with so much talent, but he's a guy that also worked really, really hard, training, footwork. He loved the training and, basically making his body as strong, as fast, as quick and stuff as he could. So I think that was one thing that really sold him on the Alabama. And Najee just a very, genuine, I think, a guy that loves people and kind of fell in love with the Alabama campus and being around people and everything. So we were definitely excited to get him.
How nervous were you guys that, I guess, that last week before he flew into Birmingham? Was there some concern? Because everybody always tells me, oh, well, you recruiting analysts may not know, but the coaches, they 100% know what a kid's going to do. That's not the case all the time, is it?
Well, no, it's. I mean, sometimes it's crazy, especially down to the wire when kids go silent and and the parent, and I understand, but especially a lot of times, the pressure, talking to people and all that. They probably, I know all of them like it at first, but after a year or two, probably at the end, they're probably a little worn out. I know sometimes the coaches and people are kind of the drama of all of it. It's great when you get them, but when you're not, it's just not as much fun. But I know Michigan was the team that was really hard at him, and Coach Harbaugh, and they did a great job recruiting him. And Michigan's a great program, and Coach Harbaugh was relentless and on him and stuff. And I think luckily he had a really good relationship with Tua, and they were in the Army game together and became great friends. And and at the end of it, I think he just thought, hey, Alabama's going to be the best place for me to win a championship and kind of be the best football player I think I can be. And even early on, I know Coach Burns did a great job He's our running back coach for the Giants. And, Burt Burns is, in my opinion, one of the best running back coaches to ever coach football, and best people too. And, I know Najee, like a lot of guys we talked about earlier, it's Alabama's had so many great running backs, especially when you're a freshman, just because you were a great player in high school, you still got to learn how to press blocks and the timing of the blocks and different schemes and pass protection. And, a lot of things that you got to fine tune, especially against SEC competition or just in general in practice every day with some of the players you're going to face on the other side of the ball at Alabama. But, I think, he kept developing and, Coach Huff did a great job with him this year, and he's really paying off.
Well, that 2017 class, I think a lot of people are going to talk about it for a very long time. Just unbelievable amount of talent, and a lot of guys that just lived up to all the expectations. With Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs. You got Tua, Mac, Najee, Jedrick, Alex Leatherwood. I mean, just so many names. Have you ever seen a class that has had that many success stories?
We're I think our, like I'll say all the time, our whole coaching staff did a great job. Starts with Coach Saban and support staff. But one thing I think, we really tried to work on is guys that love football and was playing football for the right reasons and loved Alabama. And those guys, especially, you think of receivers a lot of times, especially guys as talented as Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, a lot of times, and I think about Jalen Waddle and guys like that. A lot of times these guys that are such great receivers, they may want to go somewhere that they're going to throw the ball 80, 90% of the time, and they're going to be the number one target, and they know they're going to get 15, 20 balls thrown at them. And that never came up with any of those guys, which was so special. And none of them, they were very, very unselfish. They were all team first guys. They loved to block. On their high school tape, they played special teams. They love football, and I think that's what made them all special. And every one of them is going to be a first round draft pick and won championships and doing it in a team setting, which is special. They did it with Tua throwing to him, Mac throwing to, different quarter, Jalen throwing to some of them. And, and you never heard any of them. I don't think I ever in my time there, and I don't remember any instance or hearing any instance where they were, throwing their helmet on the sideline or mad because I didn't get 10 targets. They were all, and I think what Jalen did, coming back and playing in the national championship game, just the heart and determination and, what Jeff Allen and Dr. Kane and all them did to get him back to that game and just showing how much winning and being part of a team meant to him is very special. And I can't say enough good things about those guys, and I think they'll all have successful careers on the next level too.
I want to ask you about another running back, Josh Jacobs, who's obviously doing really well in the NFL and had a great career in Tuscaloosa. Obviously, not every recruit's a guy that you start recruiting from the absolute get-go. Tell us about how Josh became kind of a late target for you guys, and obviously pretty lucky to snatch him there at the end, right?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs. It was funny because Jeremy Pruitt had just got hired back at Alabama, and we're getting there ready to go on the road. Most of the coaches and I believe somebody had texted Jeremy about him, and he sent it to me. It was about 1:00 in the morning. I was still at the office working, and I watched his huddle tape. I was like, man, this guy's really good. Now he was a lot of quarterback direct snap and all that. So we cut up his tape, and next day Coach Saban watched it, and he liked him and said, well, this guy's, it's probably gonna be worth checking out and everything. So Burton Burns liked him, and Burton hops on a plane and goes out to Tulsa. I said, man, we got to check this guy out. I can't believe he didn't have any more offers. I think he had Tulsa, and that was it. And of course, I think the internet blew up when Coach Burns went there. What's Alabama doing in Tulsa, Oklahoma, looking at this running back? And Coach Burns calls back. It's like, everybody loves him. Great young man, playing basketball, just people raving about him, and just kind of, he really didn't go to a lot of camps on combine and, smaller school, and probably didn't have a lot of action. People recruiting, national teams and stuff in there. And so when they found out we went there, I think Oklahoma came the next day, and Missouri had kind of come in there and lined him up for official visits. When Coach Saban's like, well, we can go ahead and bring him in on official visit. Well, Missouri was kind of all in on him after we'd been in there. So we literally call him. He's on his Missouri visit, or I think we talked to him before he went on his Missouri visit. It's like, call us if you're interested. They get in a car and drive to Alabama, him and his dad, and for his official visit. And, we basically said, at the time we were kind of filled up, and I forgot who we lost a player or something late to somebody decommitted to us. So we ended up with a spot. But it was on signing day. So, Coach Saban, and we told him like, hey, we probably won't know till lunch if you're willing to wait, and just trying to be up, telling him like, hey, we understand totally if you've got to take the scholarship to Missouri, but this is basically, we're not going to know till noon. So I'm sure Missouri waited on him. I know I would have if I was anybody in the country, but fortunate for us, we ended up having the scholarship, and, he called us and we got his scholarship sent, and they signed it and sent it back. And special young man. I know he had a couple hamstring injuries early on in Alabama and battled through some stuff, but, really proud of him, having a great career with the Raiders, but, really special guy.
Out of the guys that you were, that you recruited, that you were part of during your time at Alabama, was there one story that one success story, maybe it would have been Josh, but was there a success story out there that you're really proud of, that you're really happy to see, kind of happen throughout their career?
Yeah, one that kind of sticks out to me, is Rayquan Davis. Rayquan was one of the first academic redshirt waivers in NCAA history. I know he had to miss his first game his freshman year, but Rayquan was a guy that really kind of developed late. Always had the size, and he had some academic stuff early on in his high school career that he really worked hard toward the back end to get eligible, and our compliance staff did a great job. And everybody working with that and everything. And I just think Rayquan's a guy that came to Alabama, graduated from the University of Alabama, used all the resources, and John Deaver and the whole academic staff at Alabama, can't say enough about them. I mean, they would be there 24/7 to meet with a recruit and his family, and set up an apartment, whatever a young man was interested in meeting with. And that don't happen at a lot of places. And that makes a difference when a recruit's on campus and his family, and all these people are meeting with them, with the academic staff, and showing how important academics are, and whatever field they're in, some of the top professors or the head of that department is willing to come meet with them. That's a huge impact. But Rayquan just really did a great job working not only academics, but, with his body and taking coaching and using all the resources. And, so proud to see him get drafted by the Dolphins and have a great rookie season, to graduate. And then, you see he's, this Christmas giving back to the community in Meridian, got the key to the city, and now he's doing a donation and helping young men in the community and giving back to families. And you're just really proud to see that he realized a lot of people helped him and he's giving back. So really proud of Rayquan.
And one of the largest human beings you'll
It always has a smile on his face, getting to see him last year at the combine and different places, man. He was so happy. And, I think he's a guy that really shows, really working hard and taking advantage of everything, all the resources at Alabama, and making the most of his time there.
Yeah, we're a week away from less than a week away from National Signing Day, and now the early signing period, kind of takes a lot of that excitement and I guess nervousness away from from this final week, because Alabama has signed the majority of its class so far. They still have one kid who's committed, who's unsigned, Kamar Wheaton, and still going after a few others, but. I guess if, back in your day, what was this week like, kind of leading up to this, this final day?
Well, in most places you'd see live filming and, especially at a couple other SEC schools, and all the coaches have been in a war room high-fiving, working and all that. And Alabama, Coach Saban, he was on the phone with the next year's class waiting. So, everybody used to say, man, are y'all in the room celebrating? I'm like, no, I was nervous, hoping all those scholarships came in. And then we were trying to juniors and guys were calling in because Coach Saban was in there watching recruiting tape. Other SEC head coaches and Big Ten, ACC, they're eating donuts, celebrating, high-fiving, chest bumping with staff, and Coach Saban, he's in there watching junior and sophomore tape and getting ready for the next class. So, but it was business as usual a lot of days. But it was, of course, we would be checking TV and social media, and but a lot of times you'd be breaking the stories before we even got the stuff in. So that was always a good resource. But no, it was usually exciting, and like I said, most of the time we felt like we got all the guys that we needed, and they always say, don't worry about the ones you lost, and a lot of times, sometimes those guys did end up being the players you thought they were going to be anyway, and you look back at it and say, man, we were stressed out, and we're thinking, man, if we'd only got that guy. But a lot of times you end up getting some guy that maybe you didn't think was going to be as good a player, and they end up being that much of a better player. So but it was a lot of times it wasn't a lot of celebrating as much as some places.
Well, tell me about now. Do you still follow? Obviously you got so much going on up in New York, but do you still follow recruiting much at all anymore?
Oh yeah, we get free moments and stuff. I try to keep up with all you guys, man, and you do a great job. And especially the in-state players in the state of Alabama. That was always, you love to. I always tell people there's nothing better than high school football, especially in the state of Alabama. And my brother's one's the head coach at Bessemer Academy now, and my other brother just got the head coaching job at Tuscaloosa Academy. So both of my brothers are high school coaches in the state, and then knowing a lot of the high school coaches in the state, and how special high school football is in Alabama and a lot of the surrounding states. You love to see that passion. I mean, I still check the scores on Friday night and Saturday, especially if it's a good like Thompson Hoover rivalry or something, seeing a lot of those games. And you got a lot of friends that you play college ball with, or you got to meet over the years, and it's real special to get to see them have success. And you're getting old when guys you played with in college are about to have guys coming up already in junior high school, so you're getting old then. But being a high school coach's son, man, I love it, and any chance I can get back and everything and check all that out, I do.
Cool, Jody. Well, man, we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight, kind of shedding some light on your career, your time at Alabama, and just what it's like to kind of be in the just enthralled into everything, man. I know you love it, you always have, and it's always been a pleasure to be around you and know you, and tell your wife Meredith I said hello. I'm sure I know she probably misses Tuscaloosa. But yeah, man, y'all have a good one, and we'll try to catch up soon. Okay.
I appreciate it, Andrew, and maybe we can get us some more Crimson Tide players this year. I know Dalvin and Xavier, man, they did a great job for us this year, man.
Well, there's quite a few.
Yeah, Carson Tinker too. He's a long snapper for us.
Oh yeah, there you go, man. Cool. Well, have a good one, brother.
All right, Andrew. Thank you, man.
We'll see. Thanks, bro.